So, welcome back to our third mince meal. I have the mince already on the gas, and I will just keep turning it until it is completely brown. I've added a tiny bit of salt and pepper, not too much. Now you can get some low salt if you want to cut down on your sodium intake. Now with this I want to get the onions in fairly quick. That is 125 grams of onions after they've been peeled and chopped. Now what we are making, since that's now going to take some time to get some colour into it and brown off properly, we'll just let that work its way. What we are making, I have some of the cheapest spaghetti, let's get this up the right way, spaghetti that you can get. This is 500 grams, it is 28 pence. We are going to use a fourth of this. Now I have measured it. Well, I could have just measured it by scale and measured out 125 grams, which is a fourth of the pack. But I have this, which just about gets it to that size anyway. This is an item which does 1, 2, 3, 4. Frankly, if you're doing 4, that's the whole pack. Just to be fair, you might as well just put the whole pack in if you're doing 4. I don't think you're going to notice the difference, but I always had the problem that I would do spaghetti and I would look at how much one portion looked like when it only looked like this going into, and I would always add a little more. And the thing comes is that when I added a little more, once it had expanded and became full spaghetti, it was too much, and I just ended up getting sick of eating piles and piles of spaghetti. So this, I got this off Temu and it was less than £1. So you can either weigh your spaghetti out if you have some scales, or you could just get one of these. You just pass the spaghetti through the hole, and if it all fits, that's one portion. So quite a cheap item. So we are going to, instead of using a tin of tomatoes, now if you're making it for 2, you might want to use a tin of tomatoes, because then you can save using fresh and just use the tin of tomatoes. Now I do have a tin. I got a tin. This was 38 pence, but instead I'm just going to make a fairly quick tomato sauce, and I have 150 milliliters of water, which will go into the frying pan and cook up and make the sauce. And to make the sauce, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of ordinary tomato sauce, but I'm going to use the tomato paste, puree, whatever you want to call it. Now this is 60 pence for this whole thing. It has 200 grams, and you're probably not even going to use a tenth of this, so you're probably looking at maybe 6p for this. I doubt I'm even going to use a tenth of that, but you're just adding the flavour of the tomato sauce. So just give, when you're cooking, you must remember that you need to move the food around in the pan. Also give it a turn over. This is going fairly slow now, so I'm going to increase the temperature and get my halogen cooker thing to go a little faster. And you should start hearing that. You hear the sizzle. So we want to get the onion to go at least a little soft. You might want to keep a little crisp in the onion if you want. Now, so we are looking at about 125 grams of spaghetti, and if you're only using the 64 grams worth of mince, which is technically more than what is in the spaghetti bolognese to start with, then you're going to come in at, I've done all the calculations and we'll look at them later, but we're looking at, we'll get somewhere near, because we're going to add the sauce. We're going to add, I've got some tomatoes which I got for 40 pence. And I'm going to add 50 grams of tomato. What I'm going to do is just quickly chop them into little bits so you can still see the tomato. And at the last minute, I will drop them in so they just warm up. And therefore, you will keep their shape and form, and you'll be able to taste them more rather than not being able to find them at all, which is what normally happens in one of the cheap versions. So now that is doing a lot better. Now for colouring, I'll move you across so you can have a look. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. The mince is getting a little bit of colouring on it, and as I say, this is a larger portion of mince on the grounds that I can't do a 64 because I am not making 8 meals, and the mince will go bad before I get anywhere making that number of meals with it, because I can't freeze a portion of mince. So that is looking a lot better. So let's now bring the water into the thing. 120 or 150 millilitres of water in. Just opening up the tomato paste. Which looks like this. And we put that in. So we hardly used anything, I've just squeezed it there. On top, a little bit of now. Wait a minute. We're now going to use this, and we're going to stir this. Now, some of this water will go off in steam, but now we want to get some of the flavour into it, just making sure that we've got all the paste now diluted into it. To make it simple, we have some mixed herb. This used to be 39 pence, but now it's 60. We are not using very much of this at all. So this is what it looks like. It's just a mixed herb. Now, give a generous pinch and just sprinkle it all over. I'm going to give it a little more. But as you see, we've hardly touched any of it. Let's give it another mix. Now we're going to get the smell and the aroma of the mix. I'm going to reduce the temperature down now because I need some time to cook the tomato. So we're just going to let that go slowly. Now we have everything in there. This is our sauce, this is our topping, and as you see there is quite a lot because really there's twice as much mince in there. I would keep how much onion there is, but you'll only be getting half the mince. So stop. Okay, go. Right, so we've used the paste, we've used hardly any, probably, we've hardly used any of it. So you probably use about 5 pence worth of that. So I have some rather older tomatoes that the skins are going a little bit on the softer side. So we're just going to quickly chop these into tiny little bits. I am doing 5 tomatoes here. And as we said, it's about 50 grams. A normal pullet has about 250. That's slowed down and gone quiet. I'm just going to go over and make sure none of it is sticking to the pan. And the sauce, most of the water is now gone. So I'll finish doing this, then we'll put this into the rest of it. Now, this is a fifth of a 250 gram pullet of tomatoes. I think the cheapest that you can get is 69 pence for 250 grams. So it would be a fifth of that price. You want me to do the calculation, aren't you? Well, do I feel up to doing the calculation on a fifth of 69 pence? Well, probably looking at about 12p, aren't you? That would get to 60 pence, so 69 would be about 13, 14 pence. So I have my chopping board right near the edge, so I can just push stuff into. So 50 grams of tomato, which we're just going to drop in there. And by the way, I am going to put it into this bowl, so I'm not dirtying a bowl for no reason whatsoever. Now we'll mix that in. Now, as I said, I already have the spaghetti in the pressure cooker. I put it in the pressure cooker. I set it to 15 minutes, so it heated up. As soon as it hit a temperature, it ran for 15 minutes, then turned off. I've left the lid on it, so it's keeping it warm while I'm doing this. You would normally do it all at the same time, but then if your spaghetti takes longer to cook, I do prefer my spaghetti cooked all the way through. I am not into having things which are a little crispy. I'm not used to that. Okay. Of course, you can add mushrooms in. You don't need many, maybe 50 grams worth of mushrooms if you want to put some mushrooms in. Up to you. If you want to add peas, stick some peas in. Whatever you want to put into your spaghetti bolognese, don't be afraid to put it in. You don't need a large amount, because if your aim is 400 grams to come up to what you buy in the shop. So we can easily get to that, because we've got about 100. By the time that comes out, that's much more in the spaghetti. Let's have a look. So that's done. Where's my fork? Got my fork. I'm just going to bring out a little bit of the mince. Yeah, that's cooked. As you say, it's cooked. It's got a glisten on top rather than the sauce, so there's not a lot of sauce. It's all now mixed in. I will give it another blast up at high level. What we could do is just add a tiny bit of water. This is going to cool it down, but I mean, we're not going to add much. We're just going to add a tiny bit, and let's by the time that's heated back up. So we could have started off with a higher amount of water if we want to maintain some of this. But that will not take long at all, not at the heat that the pan is at, as you can hear now. So I will get the spaghetti out. So I've turned the pan off, we have the spaghetti out, and since this inner pan is really hot, we need to protect my hand so I can show you. This is what 125 grams of pasta looks like. So I'm going to bring the camera down and you can have a look at me putting it out. Okay, go. So go. Okay, so let's put some of this out now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put out half because I've got enough to do 2 separate bowls. So I'm going to keep some. Alright, you come out then. So that's the spaghetti. So as we see, you can see the redness here, and that's all come from the sauce. So it's not fat, it is actually the stuff from the sauce. So once again, I will keep some of it behind for my second portion that I'm going to have. So let's go into the living room and you can have a closer look. Okay, so we used, if we do the 64 grams of mince, which I haven't because of the reason why, but if you use that, then you have 62 grams of mince is 42 pence. 125 grams of onion is 9 pence. That is based on 69 pence a kilogram for your onions. If you get them cheaper, that will bring that price down. The spaghetti, 1 portion, which is about 125 grams if you measure it off and keep somewhere near that. It doesn't make a lot of difference because the spaghetti value is technically 7p. So the sauce, the tomato paste, we paid 60 pence for that, well 59. We've barely used probably 5 pence worth. The tomato sauce, just a couple of squirts of that, and the tomatoes was 50 grams. So down below I will have this all listed and the percentages of what the weight is. But once again, we don't have a massive sauce, but don't forget, when you buy the spaghetti bolognese with lots of sauce, you are paying for that sauce and you're paying for the water. This is more food than liquid. So, and you tell me that does not look a lot better than what you get. So I will try to get some of the spaghetti on the fork. My spaghetti's escaping. Now, no additives, no E numbers, no sugar added. We have something that has more flavour. It's not just a whole pile of tomato sauce, liquid. and we can find the items in it. We can find the mince. So this is far cheaper. This is definitely going to come in under £1, because what you put in depends on if it comes in under £1. You could just do the mince and use half a tin of tomatoes and make the sauce with that if you don't want to do the thing. But the paste and the squeeze is cheaper, so it is up to you which way you want to go. Half a tin of tomato, chop up the tomato, put it into the frying pan in the same at the time when I put in the water, and then don't add the tomatoes. Then that will do that. But really, there is not a lot. The fresh tomatoes, you can see them, they have more freshness and more flavour to them than a tin. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you will give that recipe a go. Simple, and that is what I stick to, bringing you cheaper foods, more volume, better quality, and something that you can make at home with ease. So thank you for watching, and